conversation.
בכל מעשה ידינו ברכנו השם אלוקינו וברך ברך את שנתנו ותן תן 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 תלו מטר על פני האדמה תן 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 תלו מטר על פני האדמה ברכנו 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 על פני האדמה השם אלוקינו וברך ברך את שנתנו.
Now, Avihu Medina is of Yemenite origin. You see, he's playing with full instrumental background, Western music and traditional Middle Eastern instruments. His father in Yemen would have been arrested if he had tried to do the same musical instrumentation because it was forbidden for Jews. That's a reminder for us what it means to be a free Jew, where no one dictates to you what you may or may not do. 2,000 years of that dictations come to an end. Very good, very good. Now, a little bit of study. I'm going to go to share screen and pull up something for us here. So we're going to plug our way through the Mishnah. That should carry us for several years without any problem, especially it's like one word at a time. Yeah, I've got it up. Full screen. It should show full screen. Does it show full screen there? I can enlarge it. See if I can enlarge the image. There we go. Okay. So I introduced it last week and asked the question, when do we begin reciting the Shema in the evening? And the presumption is you already know you're supposed to recite the Shema in the evening because you've had it in the Shema itself. It says, you shall say, you shall recite it. As you're walking, when you go lie down, and when you rise up. Yeah. So it would be reasonable to say, well, in the evening, because it starts out with you do it when you lie down. But now we ask the question, since we know we're supposed to do it, we don't know when. So how will we know in a time when people don't have watches or smartphones to tell them, or even the bell on the city tower? So we go ahead and we say, Misha'ah shekohanim nichnasim lechol b'trumatam. Right here, the very first. From the time that the Kohanim enter to eat the truma. Very interesting. So we need something that everybody can see. When the Kohanim are rushing in the streets to eat from the truma, what does it mean from the truma? They get their daily allowance from the foods that the children of Israel have given them as their offerings, the crops, part of the fruits, and so on. So they can't eat unless they're pure. And they can be pure only in the evening. They finish the day, they go to the mikvah, rush to the mikvah, then they can rush home and eat. They have to be eaten in a state of purity. So rabbis ask a question, scholars ask this question, why do this as a sign? Well, one is there are a lot of Kohanim around if you're in Jerusalem. If you're elsewhere, there are not that many Kohanim around. But in Jerusalem, and the rabbis, the early Pharisees' headquarters are in Jerusalem, so they see Kohanim all around. If you go to the old city today, you take some of the tours of the old city, they go in and they go to excavated old Jewish houses going back to the Roman period and even earlier. And everywhere around them, there is a mikveh. And then they notice that some of the mikvah are designed in accordance with the Sadducee directions, and some in accordance with the Pharisee directions. Well, the Sadducee directions would be for those priests, most of the priests who are the Sadducees, and their mikvahs are designed that way. The others are the Pharisees, who are not necessarily Kohanim, but they follow the Kohanim because they take over rituals of the Kohanim. So one of the thoughts here is that we are identifying the average Jew should behave like a Kohen. His clock is the clock of the Kohen. Right? There's the thought. So we try to introduce things into the life of the average Jew that was at once the privilege of the Kohen only. So using the timing of the Kohen going in to eat the Trumah, the offerings, becomes a symbol for the average Jew when he's supposed to start the Shema. Right? That's the way you do it. Yeah. Only in the temple offering, but everywhere else any Jew did. Yeah. Well, that was a sacrificial blood. That's different. That's a different one. Right. So, but the others, mainly the impurities are the day-to-day impurities, touching dead by accident, next to a menstrual, and all sorts of things that would cause impurities. They're both parties were very, very careful about this. Ritual purity was a very central part of Jewish daily life. We have, since the temple, we have removed it almost entirely. The only restriction being really the relationship of husband with wife on the monthly period, and not coming in touch with the dead. Those are the only two elements left over. But at one time, this was a very, very important element of Jewish daily life, much more so even than having kosher food, we could say. Netilat Yadayim is from that. Yeah, it is from that period, right? It's established. Wash your hands, yeah. Every several hours. It was ritual purity. It wasn't so much physical purity, but it led to physical purity as well as a consequence. The Muslims follow it from us. Washing is very important among the Muslims. It was not in Christianity. All right, so there's the beginning. Well, then just wrap up. So how late? Till the first watch of the night. That's according to Rabbi Eliezer. Then we have to have a question, like all Jews. What do I mean by the first watch? The first watch, are we doing 4 watches a night or 3 watches a night? If the night is divided into 3 watches, that's 12 divided by 3, do a 12-hour series. That's every 4 hours. But if we're doing a 4-period watch, then it's every 4 hours. Go figure. That's Rabbi Eliezer. Hachamim omrim ad chatzot. The sages say till midnight. So then we'll go into why till midnight. And we continue that next time. All right, so it gives us something else to discuss. Okay, here we go. Okay, now let's go ahead. Joe is not here, and we don't have our full minions, so we're going to just go right into the Torah service. I'm going to go into my Torah commentary as our crowd builds up. Okay, and we'll do it in advance, which is we are now on to portion of Miketz. So I'm going to pull that up for us. We'll do our introduction beforehand. Everybody likes this one because you get this musical Joseph in the Technicolor coat. Right, you remember it? That's who was it? Weber. Right, one of his popular musicals. It's repeated all over the place all the time. A beautiful retake, and the Joseph story is food for so many novelists and playwrights. Thomas Mann, one of the greatest of the German writers, has his book Joseph and His Brothers. And we have here at this point, in this section, it is Joseph, Pharaoh has his dream, famous dream, the fat cows, the thin cows, the fine, rich ears of wheat, and then the bad ears of wheat. And then no one knows what it means. interpretation of dreams is very important. They call Joseph from the prison, and lo and behold, he understands dreams. And very interestingly, Joseph always says, it's not me, it's from the power of God. And he speaks in terms of God. It's something divine that is going on. I am merely telling what the divine has told me. Joseph listens, the Pharaoh listens to him, and he says, you must store up grain and be ready for it. And it turns out that in history, this has actually happened in ancient Egypt. And I'm going to talk about the historicity of Joseph later on. There's some curious parallels to Joseph, actual parallels in ancient Egypt around about this time. All right, and then you have this rise of Joseph to power. And I'm going to talk about Joseph and being so very assimilated, as we see in here. Finally, come to the reading that we're going to start, which is over on page 42, page 159. And we begin the cat and mouse game that Joseph will be playing with his brothers. And it will be resolved in the next portion, right? It's like every portion. This is one of these TV series where this show ends, leaving on a cliffhanger, and you have to kind of stay tuned for next week. So, we know the ending here is Joseph holds the brothers as, thieves because his goblet is gone, and we don't know what's going to happen. And he accuses Benjamin. That's at the ending. You have to come back next week to find out what happens. That's how we get people back in shul. So in this one, and if you want the whole thing, you have to come back next year because, it's going to be in the cycle. Okay. So Jacob sends down 10 sons because Joseph no longer is alive as far as he understands. And Benjamin is the youngest, the last of his favorite wife's sons. And he's not going to let him go down because there's danger. He's afraid of that. And they go down to buy food. One of the interesting things, the lishbor, this word is repeated over and over again. Here's another place, but it's like a phrase that appears itself very much in this particular story. Yesh shever b'mitzrayim lishbor, the word shin bet resh, meaning not to break something, those in the modern Hebrew, breaking something, but another sense of shever, which means to buy something. Anybody, Barbara, do you remember Mashbir Litzorchan? Was that the department store? The department store, Mashbir Litzorchan. Do you remember that one, or did you leave before they opened it up? Mashbir Litzorchan. That was the first department store in Israel. It was after Shek, right? Do you remember that one? Maybe they opened it up after you left. Yeah. No, so there's no, yeah, I can't. Yeah. In the kibbutz, when I was in Israel as a student, I took a class. Yeah. With children. Yeah. So it's very interesting. You talk about kibbutz. There's the Israeli version of the intelligence test, WISC, or WASC, whatever it was called. And I studied this one of the courses I took. And when you're administering the test, one of the simple questions is, where do you go to get bread? And you'd say you'd go to a grocery store, you'd go to a supermarket. But then there's a different version for kibbutz. You go to whatever is the depository. Right. So they had to adjust the question. Right. So they had to adjust the question for whether the kid was town and country or kibbutz. Right. So here they go to, so Mashbir Litzorchan was set up, I think it was the Histadrut set it up as a department store, or kolbo, everything's in it. Mashbir, the one who is selling to the consumer. Well, that word appears here, mashbir. Joseph is the mashbir, he's the seller. But there's a play on words. Yesh sheva b'mitzrayim, there is a play on words also meaning there's hope in Egypt. And so this word is used over and over again. So they go down, and we know this, Joseph sees them. They don't recognize him, but he recognizes them. And the rabbis explain very simply, enough years have gone by. He was still a youngster when they sold him out. Now he's a mature man. He has a beard and he's dressed as royal garments of an Egyptian officer. So it's very understandable they would not recognize him, but more or less they look about what they would have looked like from years before. He recognizes them right away, makes the accusation immediately, you are spies, and then says, okay, then they protest and we're not spies. The Reuben, who is the first one, says, no, wait, no, we have this, there are 10 of us, but there were 12 originally, one of them died. And I warned, and watch what he says. Reuben is arguing among them, and he says, I warned you not to hurt that guy, our brother. It would come back to haunt us, right? And Joseph is listening, and he pretends not to understand, but we know he understands. He goes to the side, he starts to cry. He then asks them for a hostage, and he does not take Reuben as a hostage, the firstborn. He goes immediately to the secondborn. So he knows Shimon is the secondborn. Or maybe Shimon was the troublemaker, we don't know, but number 2 in line. Reuben, he sees, tried to help. So he's not going to take it out on Reuben. So he takes that on Shimon, number 2. He then holds Shimon back, sends them back in, but puts the money back in their bags. Now they're in a real panic. That's what he's trying to do. It's trying to initiate a little period of fear. They can't come back. They can't come back because it says you can only come back if you bring Benjamin. Come down. The father says, no way, I cannot send down my only Benjamin. It'll send my head to the grave early. Finally, there's no food. Even Reuben comes up and says, I'll let you kill my 2 sons if we don't come back. A little bit overdone. He doesn't want to kill more sons. Finally agrees. They go down. Everything is very nice. They honor them. And all of a sudden, he places Benjamin. Very nice to Benjamin, also on top of all this. And now, as we know, it'll end up, he plants a trap, puts his goblet inside Benjamin's bag, sends everybody home with rewards, suddenly sends the police after them, and we're left hanging in suspended animation to find out what happens at the end. All right, so that is the reading. Any questions? Still waiting for our crowd to come in. Problematic, yeah. The rabbis try to get away with it. The only one, is the Judah with Shua. I think it's about Shua. And there we told she's Adullam. Seems to be a Canaanite, but they said no, it doesn't mean a Canaanite as from Canaanite. It's a merchant. And they try to wash it away. They come up with another explanation also. Every one of the brothers has a twin sister. We only know one, which is Dinah. Only because we know her name only because she gets raped. Otherwise, we wouldn't know her either. If everyone has a twin sister, you may marry theoretically the sister from a different mother. So these are children from Rachel and the concubines, and these are from Leah and the concubines, so they switch. That's the other way to get around it, right? Or they get around it by saying, well, you can take other peoples, because now they're Ishmaelites, their family. They could have taken from there. They are Moabites and Ammonites, their family. You can take it from them. So you can get away with it, right? And they're very much disturbed because, all right, it ain't the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. B'shiv nefesh yadu Mizraim. Yeah, but They only mention the men, right? Also, when they leave Egypt, 600,000, it's only the adult males they're counting. Yeah. 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 Going into Egypt, the 70, right. Right. So again, they're kosher locals. They're kosher locals. They're not kosher locals. That's it. And then Joseph does the worst thing possible. Although again, the rabbis try to explain it that she really wasn't the daughter of this foreign priest. She really was the daughter from one of the tribes. Somehow had been adopted. Try to get away with it. We will talk about that later. All right. So. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. You want to get your bets on all sides, I guess. Right. So you want to be covered. I'll let him give me the Hebrew God. I'll take my Egyptian gods. I won't take any chances. I'll take the blessings from him. He accepts it because he sees Joseph something unique as a personality, somebody who knows things that nobody else knows. So a blessing from him would be great. Look, also for Abraham, you see, when he goes to the Philistines and the others and the Egyptians, they recognize him as a prophet, something in the personality. And there's also in this, also going back into antiquity, even with polytheism, there's a recognition that there's some kind of godly force behind the gods. So the individual gods are manifestations of different elements of this behind the scenes godly force. It's in Hinduism, for example, where you have all the multiple gods, but they're all manifestations of the key, and I don't remember which way, the Brahma, I'm not sure exactly what term they're using, but it's also part of this kind of thinking. What the Jews eventually did is cut out the middlemen.